Hello and welcome to an all-new episode of the Bitcoin News Show right here on the CryptoCast Network. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, so much for joining us yet again on another Sunday to talk Bitcoin. We have a lot of stuff to go over, guys, but before we do, as always, we are sharing our CryptoCast.network website where you'll find our YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, iTunes, and RSS feeds. We also have our merchandise up there if you guys want to support the channel. And we, of course, are screen sharing our QR code here because this is a community-supported YouTube channel. So we really appreciate all the donations and feedback from you guys. And as always, guys, we're going to share and shill Mr. Tone Vays's conference here. We're really looking forward to this, guys. It's coming to Las Vegas, Nevada, January 24th to 26th. So it's only a couple weeks away. We're really excited. We actually have Tone on the show, but that's a little bit of a spoiler. We'll get to that later. But this is really great, guys. We're going to have a whole lot of Bitcoiners here. We're going to have Tyler, Tone Vays, Jimmy Song, Safety, and it's all Bitcoiners. It's going to be all Bitcoin discussion. So I'm really looking forward to that. And we've still got some more tickets left, guys. 24 left at 0.1. And there's even a couple of VIP tickets left. So it's really going to be good. The actual carnivore dinner has been sold out, but it's still going to be a great time, guys. Poker tournament, Bitcoin. It's going to be great. So with that aside, let's stop the screen share, get into our quick bits section so we can go through that. And then we'll introduce our guests today. So here we go, guys. Mr. Tuur Demeester, the crypto analyst everybody knows and loves, he has penned a great tweet thread where he shares his concerns about Ethereum. And I think these are pretty valid concerns. I really hope that everybody in Ethereum has got a chance to check this out. It's got a lot of good information in there. Again, kind of years of concerns that have been actually notated in there. So check that out, guys. And as always, of course, we have the links to the show notes, or we have the links to everybody here and all the notes in the show notes as always, guys. So next article we have here is researchers have presented actually have shown some attacks for some top hardware wallets, guys. Trezor Ledger at the recent 3.5 C3 conference. There's some interesting things there. Nothing too much to worry about. Requires physical, physical presence and all that kind of thing. So, but it's really interesting to see how the community continues to try to break these devices, which is great. This is what we want to see. We want to see more and more hacking attempts at this stuff, so we can continue to make it as secure as possible. And then, of course, the mining giant Bitmain, guys, is going to lay off 50% of its workforce. It looks like, it wasn't too long ago when we were all scared of Bitmain, right? Or at least some people seem to be pretty scared of Bitmain out there. But we knew that Bitcoin would prevail. You can't have horrible, shady business practices like Bitmain and, still be around in a few years. And we got MasterCard forcing Patreon to cancel some accounts. So again, guys, we're seeing more of these deplatforming, more of this stuff. Same thing with Alex Jones and these other people here, from YouTube to Patreon. We are seeing this continue. So make sure, guys, that you are accepting Bitcoin for your donations. Make sure you guys are using Bitcoin, price your wealth in Bitcoin. Jimmy Song has penned an awesome new article, guys, discussing Neutrino, a privacy preserving Lightning wallet. Really cool, guys. This is Neutrino is a really big step forward in Lightning. Okay, this is going to enable mobile wallets, and that's going to be really big. So this is really cool. Thank you, Jimmy, for that. I encourage everybody to check this out. Lightning continues to move forward, guys. Continues to move forward in its evolution. And then Bitcoin Magazine is going back to its roots, covering only Bitcoin-related news and information. Really glad to see that. Really glad to see these guys. I mean, they've been around for a long time. They always have a lot of good information. It's where Aaron Van Weerdum, and Kyle Torpy pen most of their articles. So really great website. Glad to see that. And then despite the slump, guys, in this bear market here, despite the crypto prices, Bitcoin ATMs around the world, more than doubled just in this last year in 2018. So, we continue to see more demand, more innovation, despite the bear market. We just see all of this stuff, all the numbers going up, except for the price, of course. But that we'll talk about later. We got Tone maybe to give us a little bit of insight on that. And then finally, guys, the Lightning Network art auction goes to the lowest bidder. This is really cool, guys. Crypto Graffiti, one of my favorite designers in the space, does a lot of great projects. He has actually done this really cool project where he has sold an art project for the lowest amount of Bitcoin, and it ended up being like 0.000000. There's like 8 or 9 zeros in there for one Satoshi. It was really cool. It was like 37 cents. And it was all through the Lightning Network. So very awesome, guys. Really cool story behind that whole thing. So check that link out. And that is all we have for that, guys. So let's go ahead and introduce our amazing panelists today. First, we got Mr. Patrick Miller, Bitcoin enthusiast, and might soon have a show right here on the CryptoCast Network, guys. Patrick, how you doing? Oh, you're still muted. Don't forget to unmute, guys. I always forget to tell you.
Good right now. Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, Patrick, it's going to be fun, man. I know you're going to be talking a lot about the tech here today, so it's going to be fun. And then we got Renee. I didn't ask how you pronounce your last name, Renee. Is it Picard? I forgot.
Yeah, Renee Pickard is probably right.
Renee Picard, yes. Awesome, man. Really glad to have you here. We really appreciate you, all of your lightning videos that you've been putting out there. Renee is a data scientist, and again, guys, has been putting out these videos to teach you how to program with lightning. I really appreciate it. And we got some more stuff, maybe some information to reveal later from Renee. So we're really excited about that. So thanks for joining us, Renee. And then finally, you bet. And finally, we got our special guest today, guys, ladies and gentlemen. It has been too long since we've had him on here, Mr. Tone Vays himself. I don't even have to introduce him. Tone, how you doing today?
Oh man, yeah, it has been a while. Is this my first time on the CryptoCast Network, or was I one of your first guests?
No, this is the first time on the CryptoCast Network, Tone.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah,
hey, glad to be on. Glad you're doing well. It's awesome. Can't wait to hang out in Vegas in a couple of weeks. You're gonna play in the poker tournament, right?
Oh man, no, I would get owed. I'm not going to be in the poker tournament. Sorry, Tone. Not a poker player, guys, just a programmer. But no, really glad to see you here, Tone. This is the first time on the CryptoCast. You know, we've had Tone, of course, on a lot of the Bitcoin news shows way back in the day, a couple of years back. But he, of course, has since blown up since then. So we're really glad to have him back on here. So thanks again, Tone, for being on here. Let's go ahead and get into the topics, guys. The first topic is, of course, a personal favorite of mine. We have the 10-year anniversary of the Genesis block of Bitcoin. And I really want to hear from you guys. Like, what does this make you guys feel? You know, I know we've all been here in this particular show, guys. We've all been in Bitcoin for years now. So I kind of want to get maybe some stories about what you guys have noticed, what you guys have seen, how you guys are feeling, maybe a little bit of maybe some predictions even, what you guys think. But I'm really curious to see what you guys want to say. So first, let's go with Patrick. Patrick, listen, you know, it's been 10 years now. You know, of course, we still have that chancellor on the brink of bailout for banks, right, on that Genesis block written. We really like that. I wanted to see what your thoughts are on this. I know you've been in the Bitcoin since at least 2013. What do you think about this whole anniversary? I mean, do you see Bitcoin keep on? Do you see Bitcoin evolution continuing? Do you see it better year over year? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, we've come a long ways from. I've been in Bitcoin since I guess 2013. Yeah, and I mean, just all the software development that's happening is just really exciting. It's obviously getting stronger and stronger. The activation of SegWit in 2017 was huge for enabling the Lightning Network, and then now just all the new innovations that are going to come out this year are just really exciting. So I mean, it's one thing a lot of people think, you know, when they think about cryptocurrencies, a lot of them think like, oh, like let's use this newer altcoin or something like that. But the reality is that this is software, and this software is constantly being updated. And the Bitcoin code base is really the most developed software in the world for this. So I'm excited that we made it to 10 years, and there's no way it's going to stop. So. Yeah,
man. I try to tell people, you know, I mean, the blockchain, of course, as we know it, was custom built for Bitcoin, right? And Bitcoin was custom built for censorship resistance. So yeah, it's great to see these 10 years. And I think even more and more people, as of late, are sort of realizing that it's kind of Bitcoin, not blockchain. I think that narrative is starting to come back as well. Tone, let's go with you next. What are your thoughts on this 10 years? I know you did a show, of course, on your channel with Jimmy and Giacomo, and that was really great to see. I encourage everybody to check that out. But what do you maybe give us some of your quick thoughts on these past 10 years and what's been going on?
Yeah, it just feels like 2018 flew by so fast. And considering we were dealing with the bear market, it's man, it's like time in Bitcoin flies. And I guess the cool thing is most of us have now been in Bitcoin for half of its lifetime. And it's really hard to say what like, again, I'm not like starstruck by the fact that, you know, it's a 10th year anniversary. I mean, it's just another year like any other year. I think the best part about it is like you start to I guess, be more like people that were there before you. Like when some of us came into the space, I mean, I've been in since about 2013. Publicly, I've been around since 2014. I think Vortex, you were around the same time, 2014, 2015. And when we were first getting in, there were so many people that were so far ahead of us, you know, even like a Roger Ver who got in 2011, and, you know, Charlie Schramm, and I mean, Trace has been in it for a while as well. But with every passing year, that gap starts to close. And this is where things become really important, because I've watched almost everybody that I guess looked up to when I joined the space, that these guys, you know, knew how to explain it to me. And one by one, almost all of them have like deteriorated to altcoins and to complete another insanity. And the good thing is that with every passing year, the gap between us being involved in the space as long as them by percentage trends towards zero. And I think that's going to be really, really important going forward, where they can't really claim they've been here longer than us, right? Because it's like, yeah, you've been here 20 years and I've been here 19. What's the difference, right? So I think that's going to be really, really important going forward in order to explain this stuff the right way and where it's going. I just wanted to say something different because everything else people have heard from me before with daily videos. So here's some, I guess, some new content for you guys.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, we've seen so many of these kind of Bitcoin OGs go by the wayside. I don't know what the heck is going on, but it seems to me that the temptation, the fiat temptation, might be a little bit too hard to resist for some of these older people. And it is really, really, really crazy. I mean, Eric Voorhees even, I mean, it's funny. Some of them, are kind of coming around. We have Eric Voorhees like supporting Lightning Network and things like that, when, of course, he supported XT, Classic, BU, and all that stuff. We've seen a lot of things happen and go by the wayside. It was really, really crazy how just only a year ago we were worrying about Bitcoin Cash. And now there's, of course, well, maybe some of us were worrying, maybe not people like Tone, but some of us were worrying like a little bit what's going on. And of course, now we see that they've just, completely gone by the wayside. Like the the combined thing of BCH is like maybe 5% of Bitcoin or less, and it's going down all the time. And we see the daily on-chain volume of Bitcoin continue to go up. In 2018, we saw it reach like $38 billion. I think it's just getting crazy. And we still have no Satoshi, which is good. That Satoshi hasn't actually come back yet and claimed Bitcoin, so that's good to see. I don't think, of course, that's going to happen, but it's always fun to go another year and have again have this anonymous founder, so that we can put Bitcoin in our hands, in the community's hands, and not sort of have to have a top-down approach. And that's really what's been really important for Bitcoin, I think, in these last 10 years of its development, is all of this innovation at the edges, all of these things coming up out of nowhere, black swan events like the UASF, right? That just sort of came out of nowhere. We were all scared. We didn't know what to do. Bitmain was sort of like this big, huge problem to solve. And then all of a sudden the UASF came and we could all rally around that. So all of these things are always going to happen at the edges, and that's what's great about Bitcoin and crypto. I mean, even have like the thing of Mimblewimble, right, which was sort of like just dead dropped. We'll talk about that later, but that was sort of just dead dropped like in the middle of an IRC chat in the middle of the night. And so this is what I'm going to continue to see. I think what I'm looking for is more of this sort of black swan innovation, almost this innovation that nobody saw coming, that just comes and sweeps over the whole world. And I think we're going to continue to see more and more and more of that. You can't really find that in a company or in a corporation or in a startup or anything like that, in a centralized top-down approach. You can really only find that in like this open source community. So let's go with Renee. Renee, I know you've been, I'm sure, chomping at the bit. I'm really excited to hear what your thoughts are. I know that you do a lot of work with Lightning, Renee, and a lot of videos with Lightning. So maybe you can add that to maybe a little bit of your summary of these past 10 years. But go ahead, you got the floor, Renee. What do you think of these past 10 years? Has Bitcoin gotten better and better, and does it have a pretty bright future? What do you think?
Yes, so the thing is, for me as a developer, I see it a little bit different, right? Because one thing that I have learned in university is that technologies usually take a couple of years to really mature, so maybe 1 or 2 generations, right? So what I would say is that Bitcoin is really only in its baby age, even though it's 10 years old, right? If you, for example, look at the internet, it was invented in 71, 72. And in the early 80s, nobody would use it, basically. I mean, even email was not a thing really at this time, right? And if you compare this to Bitcoin too, I mean, you see it's a huge community. There's many people very excited about it. But how many people do you really know in your everyday life who own Bitcoin or who use Bitcoin every day, right? So this has not happened yet. So I think there is still much more to come. And in particular, when you look at the Lightning Network, I think this is one of the solutions that help to make Bitcoin really useful and usable. So the Lightning Network just turned 1 year, as I like to say. I think the first Lightning nodes came up in January 2017. At least that was the time when I spun up my first Lightning node. There's the Lightning developer Christian Decker, who is like one of the earliest Bitcoin adopters. And he has this nice blog article from late 2010 where he talks about Bitcoin is finally gaining some traction, and where he's really happy, but already complaining that new people don't mine a Bitcoin block efficiently anymore because they have to wait for a lot of confirmations, and mining pools haven't really been a thing there. And he was happy that faucets were there, right? So when you compare this to the Lightning Network is already much further than Bitcoin was after it was 2 years old, right? So for me, it's like one of the like same thing, Lightning Network and Bitcoin, and it shows how much innovation is still there to take in order for Bitcoin to become really, really useful. And I mean, obviously, it's one of the most exciting technologies. And as a computer scientist, I have to say Bitcoin became 1010 years old.
Nice, nice. I love it, Renee. I love it. Yeah, some great points in there. You know, I try to tell people, of course, all the time that, hey, it's still early days, guys. Like, it may seem like look, it's only 10 years old. You know, Trace even likes to say, I think Trace said recently, Trace Mayer said that the first 10 years of Bitcoin is really only the R&D stage. Like, we're now just maybe coming or towards the end of the R&D stage. We're not even ready to like fully go global, because there's maybe at the most 20, 30 million people in Bitcoin. I mean, in the whole world, it's tiny. Like you say, we have a whole lot of upswing to go still. I mean, I like to say, I don't even think we've hit like the beginning of the knee of the S curve. Maybe the very beginning of the knee of the S curve, but it's very, very, very early. And there's a lot of innovation left to go. And as you say, Renee, Lightning just is innovating so quickly. I think it took everybody by surprise how fast they are actually moving. And again, it's all relative, right? If you look inside, maybe it seems like it's slow if you're looking at this stuff every day, but from the outside, guys, it's only been 1 year, as Renee says, with Lightning, and we've already, almost ready for a version 1.0. I mean, they launched the beta on LiveNet just March of last year. So a lot of stuff is happening there in Lightning. And I try to tweet all the stuff as well, the stuff that's happening. And again, Renee has a lot of great videos as well covering this stuff. But I mean, there's been so much stuff this year. We, the Schnorr proposals, Better Hash as well from now I'm blanking on his name, but there's so many, Maccarello. Maccarello, and so there's just we had a great Honey Badger conference as well, where there was a lot of great stuff. Tone was there presenting. There was a lot of great innovation there. Nick Carter had a lot of great charts, and I think it was just a year where we definitely got a chance to learn a lot more about Bitcoin and about what it is, and relative to everything else, because there's a lot of confusion out there, and there continues to be a lot of confusion. This is not really an easy thing to understand, multidisciplinary, of course, and but we try to provide some content. All of us here try to provide, I think, content to help people understand that this is a once in a lifetime sort of thing. This is one of the largest wealth transfers in the history of mankind. So we're going to try to continue to prep people for this. So I think let's go maybe one more round with everybody, and then we'll go to the next topic. Tone, let's go with you. Just maybe one more bit if you have one for this topic, and then we'll move on.
Sure. No, I mean, it's great. I am fascinated with the technology, and actually, I'm fascinated with people's continued, not understanding that Bitcoin is innovating, right? I mean, just because the change itself doesn't get in, just because Bitcoin doesn't update the code for your usage on a daily basis, doesn't mean that there isn't innovation going on there. Like, it is having like the best R&D. And those changes get in there when they're perfectly safe, because there's no possibility to move fast and break things. Like, if you break Bitcoin, it's over. Like, this whole 10-year crypto experiment ends. All altcoins die, and just people's inability to understand that just boggles my mind. And it's so I'm very happy that all of this innovation is still happening. I'm very happy that people are still funding that innovation, and I'm looking forward to the next 10 years, because on my to-do list, if Bitcoin achieves the financial success that I expect, I mean, I plan to maybe support a core developer, independently, right? And that's the goal. The goal is, hey, I'm not technical enough to contribute to Bitcoin core development, but if I hodl enough Bitcoin, I'll be able to pay and support a Bitcoin core developer to do that, to help out and make sure it stays decentralized. So I'm really looking forward to the next 10 years.
Yeah, great points, Tone. I mean, I just love how, like, almost every time, when a Bitcoiner achieves wealth with Bitcoin, they put it back into Bitcoin. Like, I just love seeing that. And people like Tone and Jimmy and other big, Bitcoin people, you see what they do. I mean, Jimmy has a course for teaching people how to program in Bitcoin. You see these people continuously give back to Bitcoin. And that is what's really, really great to see. I don't see that stopping or slowing down. And, this new generation of wealth is going to be shifted to these people. So keep that in mind, guys. And as you say, Tone, I really can't agree with it more. I mean, if Bitcoin goes away, the store of value proposition for crypto is gone. Like that's it. It's just going to be digital currencies, stable coins, bull crap, ICOs, who knows what else, but absolutely true. So great points, Tone. And we also try to, when it comes to innovation, we have things like Bitcoin Optech that launched last year as well that I think is really, really great. They're trying to tell people and companies that are in the space, like what's going on. They're trying to keep them up to date, making sure that they're doing things like batching, making sure they're understanding things like the UASF, right? And other important components of and updates of Bitcoin. So Bitcoin Optech, I really, really shout out to you guys. You guys have been doing great. We really, really appreciate that. So we're just gonna try to keep telling them, Tone. Every show we're just gonna keep trying to tell them. All right, Renee, let's get your thoughts, your final thoughts on this topic before we move on. Go ahead.
Yeah, so 3 days before the anniversary of Bitcoin, I met a guy from Ghana because he's a friend of mine, and he visited in Germany, and he was very interested in Bitcoin, and I thought this is interesting. And the problem that happened is the people in Ghana basically don't know how to use it, so they can't distinguish scam sites from like legit sites, right? The difference between Bcash and Bitcoin, it's all very confusing for people, right? And I think this is also something where education plays an important role. For us techies, it's very simple to understand what is Bitcoin Core, to understand this is a Bitcoin transaction, this is the blockchain, this is how it works, right? But if you talk to the average Joe, it's still very, very complex, and we need to do a much better job in educating people about how to use Bitcoin. So for example, due to the price instability of the last year, I was able to onboard a couple of friends and family members to Bitcoin, but basically they don't want to hold their keys. Right? Because they don't know how to do this, right? They have never learned this. It's just like too much technology. People still in these days tend to be afraid of technology, right? And Bitcoin at its core is technology, right? So there are really some issues here that we have to tackle as a community, and where we also have to like continue to be nice and to talk to each other, and especially start onboarding people.
Absolutely, and we are seeing user interface get better, incrementally by little bit, right? With L&D's wallet, we saw their recent release. That was just beautiful when they combined Lightning and Bitcoin there in the same wallet, color coded and all. So yeah, we're seeing that. But absolutely, Renee, we need to continue to make it easier and easier to use Bitcoin. Otherwise, of course, everybody's just going to go to Coinbase, right? because they are continuously making it easier and easier as well to use their system. So very good points, Renee.
I might add that services like Coinbase might be very bad for many Bitcoin maximalists, right? But something that I always used to say to people is we have to accept the fact that not everybody in the world wants to be their own bank, right? And so custodial service to some degree might make sense. And I'd rather have people use Bitcoin on a custodial service than fiat money on a custodial service, right? Because if this custodial service helps to spread the acceptance of Bitcoin, well, I can be my own bank, and this is great, right? So I usually find on Reddit that people like bash down newbies of be like, here, you have to store your keys, you have to do this, you have to do that, don't use it in a custodial wallet, are you stupid, right? And then there's trolling and flaming, and I would call for people to be a little bit nicer to people that try out this technology. I mean, in the beginning, I might use a custodial service, and then after a certain amount of time, I interact with this technology more and more, I get used to it, and then I realize, hey, I really want to have my keys, I want to see my transaction on the blockchain, or I want to fire up my Lightning node, right? So I think we have to also put out a little bit more patience in there.
Yeah, great points. I mean, there's always going to be a need for some custodial solution at some point, right? Somebody's going to always want their handheld. And, this is what we went through with the UASF, where we try to tell people we don't expect everybody to run their own full node, nor do we want every single person on the planet, maybe running their own full node, but we need the option. We need that ability for those that still want to have their own sovereignty, their own financial sovereignty, to be able to validate their own transactions without a third party. If somebody wants that option still must be open, and that's what really represents Bitcoin. That's what we want. That's what the big part about Bitcoin is to have no third party, right? Is to have the censorship resistance and of course sovereignty over your own money. So we don't need everybody to run a full node. We don't need everybody, to be able to hold their own funds and do their own network consensus and hold their own keys. But we need the option to, and we still need services to be able to help us do do that. Like even Casa Huddle, right? Like there's a in between. They don't hold all of your funds, right? But they hold one of the keys. And so there's going to be a lot of these solutions that are going to be in between. I think that's going to find a happy medium that people are going to enjoy. But at the end of the day, you know, as long as you have at least one of your keys, right? That's what we really try to encourage. And of course, we really encourage doing your own network consensus. But again, we don't expect everybody to do that, but we need the option to do that, and we need to make that easier and easier and easier. So that's what's important. So really great points, Renee. Let's go to Patrick. Your final thoughts on this topic, Patrick, before we move on. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, two things. There's good points by Renee about, you know, basically securing your own private keys. This is not something that's necessarily easy, and while hardware wallets have made it much easier to do for most people, it's difficult to obtain these hardware wallets. It's also difficult to use Bitcoin in a private way, in a secure way. I would imagine, especially in you know, third world countries, it's just, you know, where are you going to secure your private keys? Do you even have a place you can secure them? And, you know, what are you going to use, steganography to secure them if you don't have a house? I mean, where you can really, you know, lock these things down? Are you going to use a bank vault? In which case you're using, okay, let's go put them in, you know, in a bank deposit box. Well, do you really hold your keys then either? There's a lot of technology that needs to be built in order for Bitcoin to become truly socially scalable. That's one of the reasons I don't really like to, I actually don't really like to pitch Bitcoin to people I know, or even really anybody out in the wild right now, because honestly, in my opinion, it's still much too early for a lot of people to be getting into Bitcoin, and they don't really have a lot to gain right now, but there's a lot of risks involved. So I like to be very honest about those risks with people. This is not a problem that's solved by any altcoin or anything like that. These are generally, you know, securing private keys is a very difficult thing, as we've seen with the 3.5C3 presentations. You know, even hardware wallets they were able to hack them by actually like just analyzing the signal and be able to get access to the private keys. So that's pretty concerning, which means that we still have a long ways to go before this technology is really truly secure and available and to be used in a secure private way by everybody. And as such, you know, in the interim, yeah, people that are getting into Bitcoin, they may end up using custodial services. And while I truly believe you should hold your private keys, you know, in one way, I don't even really want to necessarily onboard them that way. I don't want people to get too comfortable with using custodial services. It concerns me a bit, just because we've seen in the past, I've seen so many exchanges or businesses fail and take, you know, people have lost funds. I don't want newcomers to come into this space, you know, lose their private keys, lose money on custodial services, and then, you know, really be anti-Bitcoin or whatever. So I think there's a balance there, and as a community, we just have to be really honest about those trade-offs. The other thing I wanted to say is that really regarding this 10-year anniversary is that, you know, I don't know if you're familiar with the CEO of BitRefill, Sergey Kotliar. He did a really great tweet storm where he talks about Bitcoin as a mind share and the word Bitcoin, and what makes, you know, if we have like 2,000 altcoins out there, it's very, very confusing for newcomers coming into the space. They are incredibly susceptible to being scammed or losing their money or being sidetracked in the wrong direction. So, yeah, this is why, you know, everyone in crypto really needs to just like understand that we need to focus on what truly makes this technology scalable globally. And I think that what Renee's working on with the Light Network, and what we're all working on from a security standpoint, from a hardware standpoint, you know, everything that's being built for Bitcoin is what's going to make it scale to for the next 10 years. We need to solve these problems, in my opinion, before we start onboarding users. So I am in no hurry to make Bitcoin go mainstream, personally.
Great point. And people call me crazy when I say that too. I mean, I think I've heard Tone say this as well. Like we are in absolutely no hurry to onboard every single person on the planet. Unlike Roger Ver, right? Who just wants everybody using BCH yesterday. No, you know, we're trying to be very honest about the system. We you know, there's people out there, even like Vlad on the Ethereum side, like trying to tell people like Ethereum is not ready, guys, to onboard the planet yet. And it's just very, very early days. So we just have to continue reminding people about that. But meanwhile, we have, you know, amazing developers working on these problems, guys. Like, again, as we like to say, you know, Bitcoin is, you know, the Mount Everest of engineering issues. It's going to attract the smartest, the best, and the brightest. And it has in the last 10 years, and it will continue to, in my opinion. So with that aside, guys, let's go ahead. Please,
Renee,
go ahead.
The Ghana problem is not specific to Ghana. It's a worldwide problem, and it's about equal.
That is true, but I was really amazed. Like, I set up a Bitcoin wallet for him because he was interested in it, and I sent him a few millibitcoin, and then he wanted to send the seed to himself by email, and I was like, no, don't do this. And he's like, why? It's my email. Nobody can read it. I'm like, yes, everyone can.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, no, I was more talking about, you know, not, you know, like being sold scams that aren't Bitcoin pretending to be Bitcoin problem. that seems to be plaguing the world somewhat equally by percentage.
Interesting, interesting. All right, cool. Bit of a side comment there, guys. So thanks for that. But yeah, we just wanted to let everybody know that we're streaming here live, guys. Make sure to join us. You know, we're going to be here every Sunday. This is the Bitcoin News Show on the CryptoCast Network. We really appreciate it if you guys could give us a thumbs up. We're really to help us get the show out there to more people's feeds. If you guys like what you see, definitely hit the subscribe button. We really appreciate it. We try to have a bunch of shows weekly on this network. We got a bunch more coming, guys. And if you guys are the audio listeners, we really appreciate it. If you guys can give us a review over there on iTunes, we really appreciate the ones you guys have given so far. There's a few on there, so we really would love a bunch more. So thank you guys so much for that. So with that aside, let's get on to our next topic of the day. The blockchain analysis, guys, is about to get a bit harder. So this is an interesting topic, guys. In fact, this whole show almost is a little bit about privacy because the next two topics are going to be very privacy driven. So what we're going to talk about now, guys, is this new pay to endpoint P2EP. It has entered the test phases, and I want to get opinions and feedback from the panelists about this. Now, I know you guys, not everybody on here is a developer, of course, right? But we can still, we've been in the game for so long, we can definitely check out this and see what we think and get your thoughts. So, Tone, let's go with you first. What do you think about like these CoinJoin mixing services in general? The next evolution of these CoinJoin, which is this pay to endpoint. What do you think about this privacy? Is this ever going to actually like be good for us, or are they just going to keep blocking, mixed transactions and stuff like at exchanges and things like that?
No, I mean, it sounds like really good ideas. Like the amount of privacy, the amount of privacy solutions for Bitcoin, I can barely keep up with all of them. It's hard to say which is going to become more popular than the other, but they're not necessarily mutually exclusive, right? Like a lot of these things will work together. And any one of them can provide pretty good privacy, but when you start combining them, like I've been saying for years, that Bitcoin will have better privacy on top of the protocol, like as a second layer. It'll have better privacy than Monero has on the first layer, because having crazy privacy on the first layer creates so many disadvantages, and that it makes your currency hard to scale. And some of these things are pretty simple. Some of them go from pretty simple to pretty advanced. And even today, if you want to have some privacy with Bitcoin, you can do it. There's plenty of ways to do it. You just don't want to. And it's becoming more and more frustrating. It's like people are still using, talking points from 3 years ago as to why Bitcoin is not private when it is pretty private. And 98% of your transactions, they to be honest, like, yes, we all want all the transactions to be private, but in reality, most of them don't really need to be. But you will have that option, and it will be perfectly fine. Now, will exchanges continue to block them? Probably. You shouldn't be using exchanges in the first place. Like it's, I mean, these are like such little, tiny, irrelevant arguments that, well, if they'll know that you CoinJoin, but it's also so like disingenuous, right? Like, I don't know, I've never been to Coinbase, but does Coinbase allow you to use Monero in any way?
Not that I know of. They don't support XMR.
Right. So it's like people are complaining, well, your exchange isn't going to let you move your coins there if they've been CoinJoined. Yes, but they'll let you use a coin that's natively obscure. Like these arguments make no sense, right?
Well, Tone, and also Coinbase said no shielded transactions allowed for Zcash, even though they support Zcash.
Right. So it's like you're not gonna like these are just such silly arguments, and eventually every wallet worth using is gonna have privacy embedded. You're gonna get Schnorr eventually, and that adds a huge layer of privacy. You already have Wasabi wallet that is giving you privacy. All these, CoinJoin techniques, they're gonna be implemented within different wallets. It's all coming. It's all coming, and for now, I mean, the average person, at least in a first world country, no one is going after them yet for non-criminal transactions. So it's not that big of an issue yet. But by the time the governments do start going after people for regular transactions that don't have anything to do with very illicit activity, by the time that happens, we'll have all the privacy that we need. Like this was never really a concern for me. And the only people that are making it out to be a big deal is the small niche of people that are holding a bag of Monero or something else that they think is private. And I think the pool of those people is pretty much exhausted. And this is one of the things I tried explaining on my show over the last couple of weeks, is that I really think these altcoins have like exhausted their pool of users at this point. Like there's the only place their pool of users can go is to shrink as Bitcoin continues to chip away at that one little thing your altcoin thought it was doing better. And that's about it. The same goes for all the other alternative coins.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for them to finally freaking decouple, because still right now, every time Bitcoin goes up, every single freaking alt pumps. So it's going to be some time, and it could be years before they finally decouple, because the market learns very slowly, and the stuff is complex, and it's just unfortunate that it's going to take the world even longer, to understand that Bitcoin is the main proposition here. But it's going to be interesting to see them finally decouple, because right now, of course, they're all just still freaking 100% correlated to Bitcoin. And I just wanted to give a couple just stats about pay to endpoint here. It does utilize the well-known coin join mixing technique, and also Samurai Wallet has a join market developer, Adam Gibson. They're actually working on a couple of different P2EP projects of their own. So that's going to be pretty cool to see. And then again, Samurai Wallet is also working on Stowaway. So I mean, there's like as Tone mentioned, Samurai Wallet is sort of on one of the people in the forefront of this privacy movement for Bitcoin. And Tone says he wasn't really worried about it, but I think that the most thing we had to worry about first was scaling, right? We had to get the scaling thing out of the way. We had to get Lightning, but now that Lightning and scaling is out of our way, now the Bitcoin Cash is out of our way, right? Now we can sort of focus on privacy, and I think that that's going to be a big thing that we're going to be talking about this year in 2019 for Bitcoin, and into 2020 is going to be privacy, especially as we get closer and closer to the release of Schnorr signatures. That's going to be pretty awesome as well. So let's go to you, Renee, next on this. What do you think about this pay to endpoint? Really quick, and before you answer, Renee, I want to tell everybody what I think is really cool about pay to endpoint. See, with all these previous coin joins, you could actually know that a transaction was coin joined, right? You can actually know that an address has used the coin join before, and so that's how they will blacklist you. But this pay to endpoint is pretty interesting because it bounces transactions back and forth in such a way that it looks completely natural. The balances from the beginning and the end don't match each other, right? So that I think is really interesting. It says, yeah. And so I think that, and again, all of this privacy stuff is actually kind of mostly coming from Gregory Maxwell, at least the beginnings and the foundations of it. So hats off to Gregory Maxwell. The guy's a freaking genius. But Renee, sorry, I want to hear what your thoughts are about pay to endpoint. Have you got a chance to look at this yet? And what are your thoughts on privacy for Bitcoin going forward?
Okay, this is really many questions, and also I want to answer to something that Tone said before. So I tried to organize this a little bit. I had the chance to look a little bit at pay to endpoint, and as far as I understand it, it's basically a protocol of how two Bitcoin users will interact with each others when one will pay the other, right? And as far as I understood, there's also some concerns here that you can abuse the protocol, and then you have to have some punishment mechanisms. And we already see in Lightning how difficult it is to explain this to users, right? So I think from a technological point of view, it's a neat idea. I'm not so sure if this is going to be adopted, right? You could already see that many wallet developers were like, yeah, I don't know if I want to develop this if others don't develop this, right? Because you need two sides to use it. So it might be nice. It might have a niche market there. But I'm currently not that excited about it. Also, I think the Lightning Network comes with some really amazing privacy properties, right? So if you look at the Sphinx mix format that is used in the onion routing, this is a heck of a paper. I mean, if you want to read an amazing scientific paper that only got like 50 citations, you read the paper of the Sphinx mix format, and it explains you how you can transfer information in a mix network, and you don't know who sent the information, but you can still do a reply to it, right? And exactly this format is being implemented in the Lightning Network, which means that if you issue a Lightning invoice and somebody pays it, you don't know who paid the invoice. You just don't know, right? And everyone in the Lightning Network just forwards the payment. They don't know, like, for example, in IP routing, you have the IP format where you have a header, and it says who originated the package and who is the receiver of the package, right? So everyone who is routing and forwarding the package sees who are the sender and the destination. In the Lightning Network, that doesn't happen. You only see on which channel I'm receiving an onion and to which channel I'm supposed to forward the onion. Everything else is being hidden. And then, of course, when you use Lightning for payments every day, you don't have a global ledger of your transactions anymore, just the opening and closing transactions. So I think there is a lot of privacy coming here. Another thing that Tone said that I really want to emphasize is that Bitcoin already has some pretty good privacy. And I love the play of words, right? When we all remember Hall Finney, who worked for the P2EP project. Remember Edward Snowden? There is this conference where Edward Snowden was asked what he thinks about Bitcoin, and he or if he has ever used Bitcoin. And then, of course, as a OPSEC guy, he's like, I cannot answer this, but there was this time where I needed some infrastructure to do these leaks, and I might have paid them with Bitcoin. And he got this huge cheering by the audience, right? And I don't think that anyone has ever been able to identify the Bitcoin transaction that Edward Snowden used in order to buy his VPN infrastructure or secure mail service or whatsoever, right? So I think there is some good privacy in there. However, next week I'm flying to Norway to a university, and they have a project that is funded by Europol because they want to do more blockchain forensic and blockchain analysis in order to understand how money is flowing there. And again, there, I mean, if you follow the paradigms that Satoshi taught us in the very beginning, right, it's pretty hard to track you. But since most people don't care about privacy, right, even within Bitcoin, where you already have tech-savvy people nowadays, well, then, of course, you can track a lot of stuff. So again, it's a problem that belongs to the user. So if there are users who have really high demand for privacy, they might use something like pay-to-endpoint, and they might build this like small sub-network where this is great. I think for the main audience, Lightning will solve this issue pretty sufficiently.
Yeah, I really love. Oh, sorry, go ahead, please.
Sorry, and then there's one more thing where you mentioned all the altcoins that are like coming up and down. So in the university, I was creating a course about web science. And one paper that we frequently studied there was the unpredictability of creative markets. And this is a really nice study conducted by people from the Department of Psychology. They provided music to download for people and to rate. But what the people didn't know is that the recommendation engine was changing all the times, right? And the charts that were being produced by the downloads were very different for the different groups, right? So it demonstrates that herding effects and unpredictability of stuff can occur. So with all these altcoins, I'm not so positive as you are that not for some stupid reason, a herd of people might just follow a certain altcoin. And then, I mean, when you look at mass media, the only thing they talk about is the Bitcoin price. Right. I mean, if you look, for example, going back to the 10th anniversary, you know, there was this advertisement by BitMax, right? Not only the title page of the Times, but also 2 big articles that were advertisements. I think they were among the best Bitcoin articles ever to be included into a mainstream media publication. And they were not very technical, right? They were just like explaining stuff, and they were not about the price. So, yeah, some weird stuff can happen there, but that's not related to privacy directly.
Still cool, though. Still cool. So awesome. Great points, Renee. You know, absolutely. I mean, we have to always mention when we talk about privacy, we always have to mention Lightning. Lightning is just the hugest privacy win that we could ever like hope for in Bitcoin, because that is just so amazing when it comes to scaling and privacy. I mean, it's this order of magnitude scaling solution that Bitcoin needed, plus this just huge privacy win that a lot of people, I think, were wanting in Bitcoin, at least the option to use. Because obviously, the base chain, you know, you can always have the option, right, to go back to the base chain, but we wanted an option to be able to have some more privacy, and that's, I think, Lightning Network is going to really give us that, at least for the mainstream media. For more technical people, we can do some more technical things, but I'm really excited to see Lightning be rolled out. I'm really excited to see more and more exchanges and companies supporting Lightning. So that's going to be really, really great. So let's go to Patrick. Patrick, what are your thoughts on this pay to endpoint? I mean, Do you think that there's going to be enough demand, for privacy? Because there's like the panelists have said so far, really most people are kind of lazy, right? So do you think that this pay to endpoint? What do you think about that in general, and what do you think about the demand for privacy? Is that going to continue to increase?
I think the demand will continue to increase. I guess the cool thing, as mentioned here before, which Tone mentioned, is that like most people don't care about their privacy. I mean, if you've used a KYC AML exchange or you've just purchased a good online and had it shipped to your house, you've already made a privacy trade-off there. You've already given somebody your information who knows where you live. So I mean, you can never, privacy is a multifaceted problem. You can never solve it for every single use case unless you live under a rock and you're going to pay people like with a pigeon by sending, I don't know, like a signed message or something. Like, you have to make trade-offs somewhere. Lightning just by default, as Renee mentioned, just basically solves this problem. I've made hundreds of payments, this year on Lightning just for testing purposes, and I've, nobody can track those on the blockchain. It's not possible. I've challenged people to do so. They can't do that. And then when you look at pay to endpoint, I think Samurai Wallet is making a lot of progress on their own implementation of this technology. I think it's Stowaway. These transactions can be made in a way that don't necessarily look like CoinJoin. And when these transactions are made, they actually benefit the whole network. So even for people that don't care about privacy, they actually benefit from us using that technology, because we are throwing a bunch of wrenches into the gears of blockchain analysis that makes it very difficult to go backwards and know where anything originated from. So even if they want to do blockchain analysis, once they hit that point of that CoinJoin transaction, I mean, they're lost. They don't know really where anything goes. So the more people that do this, the more obfuscation happens on the network and the blockchain, and the less anyone can actually analyze the chain and know what's going on. So we don't need everyone to necessarily care about privacy or adopt privacy. We just need to keep building the technologies to allow the people that do care about privacy to do what they need to do. So I'm very excited about pay to endpoint. And really all, the CoinJoin and also Schnorr signature aggregation, as you mentioned, will make CoinJoins much cheaper to do. So we're moving ahead. 2019 is going to be very exciting. And like I said, it's a multifaceted problem. It's not just a blockchain analysis. It's also, the gossip layer, the P2P communication layer where you use the network. Are you leaking data? Most wallets today are using some type of centralized server, or they're using SPV where they're leaking privacy. So this is a multifaceted problem, as I've said, and we're just going to continue fixing this on every single front, in my opinion. And the people that are working on this stuff a long time, Greg Maxwell has been thinking about these things forever. We're moving in the right direction. Whether people understand that or not, I don't really care. But I agree with everyone here so far that privacy is, I think it's overrated in the sense that most people don't care, and most people are not going to actually take the right steps to protect their privacy. But those that do can already do so, and the tools are here now. So.
Yeah, and we don't need everybody to use these privacy features, but the more people that use them, the harder that chain analysis is going to be overall, right? So it's going to be interesting to see if we can have enough demand to disrupt that chain analysis, because some of this stuff is going to be really, really interesting. And we did see some pretty big coin joins last year from Noparo73's wallet, Adam Fisker, the Wasabi wallet. We saw some pretty big coin joins over there. So there is the demand seems to be increasing. So we're going to see if we can see more of that this year.
One quick thing before we go to Tone is, if you do a coin join to a Lightning channel, I mean, you're good, right? I mean, it's going to be very difficult for someone to trace that. Go ahead.
Especially if it's spliced, right? If you're splicing and opening another channel with that same transaction, right, it's going to get crazy. So Tone, you had something else. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned Wasabi Wallet. I was gonna add that to Patrick's list. That was one thing I was gonna. The other thing I was gonna say was you made a really good point, Patrick, on getting shit sent to your house. It's amazing how many people make fun of me that I don't understand privacy. Meanwhile, I am the guy that in my 5 years of Bitcoin, I have never in my life used my Bitcoin in connection with my legal government name or my address. I have people used to make fun of me why I wasn't using purse.io to save 30% on my goods. And my answer is because I don't want to dox myself to the government as a Bitcoin user. Every one of these people that says Monero is why on earth would you use Bitcoin for dark markets? You have to use Monero. What difference does it make? You're getting this shit sent to your house.
Such a good point, Tone. I mean, it is funny. I just saw like across Twitter the other day some kind of thing that said like buying Bitcoin merchandise, you're going to lose all of your you're going to dox yourself just trying to buy Bitcoin merchandise. So I thought that was kind of funny, losing all your privacy just to buy a couple of things in Bitcoin. Good points, guys. I mean, of course, we have people on both sides of the fence. We have people that are using Bitcoin as a store of value, and so they really want to keep their distance from any type of records. We have people that want to use it for a business and use it only for a business and use KYC. And so we're going to see all of these businesses come out and compete. My opinion though is that there is going to be demand for privacy focused wallets, and for this privacy focused technology. And I think obviously it's not going to be as big as demand as as the mainstream, but I think there will be a demand to be able to push this technology forward so that we can have the option if we really want to. And hopefully you guys will, when using that option, you won't be sending things directly to your house. Go ahead, Tone.
One last very quick thing, right? So you don't need everyone using this privacy feature. You just need enough people using this privacy feature because it helps everyone. Also, like was mentioned earlier, and because if enough people use it, it breaks all of those it makes all of those snooping codes basically inaccurate, and you can fight them in court pretty much because if enough people use it, just like not everyone has to run a Bitcoin node. You just need enough Bitcoin nodes to keep the system decentralized, and the number of the nodes needs to slowly increase over time as more and more people. So it's like if 1 billion people come in, it would be nice to get an extra, 20, 30,000 nodes around the world to keep it. Like the number of nodes has to grow, but not as fast as the number of people coming in. Same thing with these privacy features, right? Enough of the people coming in need to use the privacy features because we know the majority won't, and it will decentralize and anonymize the system in a good enough way.
Yep, absolutely. We don't need everybody on board. We just need enough. Great point, Stone. So let's go right before we go to the next topic. Just remind everybody to please share out the show, guys. If you're having a good time, we're having a great time here. We're having a great panel. We won't really find probably the combination of guests that you have on this channel anywhere else, guys. So we really appreciate it if you could subscribe, and if you guys are listening to the audio, definitely give us a review on iTunes. And let's go ahead and move on with our final topic of the day. The first cryptocurrency, guys, to use Mimblewimble, the protocol, is now live. And I'd like to get some thoughts from the panelists to see what they think about this. The name of the project is called Beam, and they have, that's BEAM, and they have launched January 3rd. And the other project that's using this Mimblewimble protocol is Grin, and that will be launching pretty soon. That hasn't launched yet, but that will be launching pretty soon. So first, let's go with you, Tone. What are your thoughts on these privacy-focused coins, and maybe specifically, of course, on Mimblewimble? And what are your thoughts on this? Because this isn't a Bitcoin clone, right? This is a separate protocol. This isn't a separate, completely separate attempt to create the most privacy possible. So what do you think about this on-chain by default privacy, Tone?
Well, again, I don't see a difference between this new one, Beam, that just came out. Grin is supposed to come out in about a week or so. And Monero and Zcash, it's an altcoin, right? I mean, at the end of the day, it's an altcoin. They're just using a new, basically a different protocol. They're using different consensus rules. So they have an altcoin. They have an altcoin with embedded privacy by default. That's fine. You already have them. What will make Beam better than Monero? Can somebody answer that question? I mean, I consider Monero to be useless, but I would love to hear someone, explain why Beam is better than Monero, other than it's newer and shinier and it starts at 0, so you can pump and dump it. There's a higher probability of a pump and dump because Monero has been with us for 4 or 5 years, right? Other than the speculative nature of it, there's absolutely nothing here. I mean, the technology might be great, but it doesn't matter, because having one feature that you may excel at is irrelevant, because Bitcoin has many features it's going to excel at, and the store of value property is only on Bitcoin. So if there ever was to be a flippening, that's it. All store of value dies, and all of these coins simply become transactional currencies. No one will ever hold on to them. Only the people that don't understand will hold on to them, and that makes no sense. So it's it's not going to go anywhere. Like, it's just the next shiny Zcash. That's all Beam is. It doesn't look like Mimblewimble will be implemented in Bitcoin because, again, it's a completely different protocol. So your only option is to have it on some kind of a side chain with a one-to-one peg to Bitcoin. Like, I'm not technologically inclined enough to understand what the hell Rootstock's been doing for the last 3 years. Of what, I mean, I don't get it. I mean, no matter how many Rootstock presentations I sit in, I just don't get it. I don't get it. I understand the purpose of why they're doing it. I can debate whether it's needed or not. I personally don't see a real need for having smart contracts on a decentralized blockchain. I just don't see a need for it. Am I wrong? Sure, maybe. If there is ever a need for decentralized smart contracts, it will probably be on something like a Rootstock or a better version of Rootstock. Now, Rootstock has its own token, though it's only there for funding purposes. I don't think that token has any utility inside Rootstock. If it does, that's kind of bullshit because it's not necessary. Now, if you want to build a side chain like what Rootstock's doing and pegging to Bitcoin with a one-to-one conversion back and forth, just so the new token that's pegged to Bitcoin has additional utility, I mean, that's fine. I can see Mimblewimble potentially implemented in that way. I don't know if it's technologically possible. I think if it's conceptually possible to me, I think it's technologically possible. So maybe Mimblewimble will be applied on some side chain, and people that want to use, that want to use the Mimblewimble privacy feature in a non-scammy, create your own money way, there will be a solution for that on top of Bitcoin. And in the meantime, these are just people that are like, hey, new technology, I can get rich on this. At least I can get paid to program something silly and for the next 3 to 4 years. And there you go. I mean, like, exactly, they're paying themselves to program it, right? They're going to have a 20% or whatever skimming off the miners like Zcash does. So it's basically a way to pay yourself to work on something instead of, being productive and doing something to help Bitcoin and the whole ecosystem.
Yeah, it's interesting, because this particular coin, Mimblewimble, is it is a startup. Sorry, the protocol Mimblewimble is not. Sorry, this Beam particular project is a startup, so they actually have funding. And guess what, Tom? They are going to have a 20% for 5 years, just like Zcash on the block reward.
Well, at least get creative. At least come up with a different percentage number. You don't have to steal that directly from Zcash, right? Like everyone is a copycat of someone else.
Yeah. It's interesting because they are definitely going to do the 20%, and they're definitely going to do it for 5 years. So, like you say, Tone, this definitely is going to guarantee, right, somebody some lunch for a few years. And this is, again, this is why you have to take these things with a grain of salt. Personally, my quick comments on it is just that I like to see the experimentation, especially from stuff not copied and pasted from Bitcoin source code, right? So this is really, I think it's really interesting from a privacy perspective to see these things go out in the woods. But what when you're talking about it as an investment, I mean, no, guys, this is just an experiment. I mean, personally, when it comes to privacy by default, Jimmy has spoken a lot about this, and I've spoken about this as well. I just don't see privacy by default on the blockchain a good idea because of that main problem of undetectable inflation, right? Like, we had an inflation bug on Bitcoin. If that would have been, actually executed, we would have been able to see it. But there's been inflation bugs on Monero and, Zcash and who knows? We don't actually be able. We actually can't detect if somebody's out there printing a bazillion of these coins because of the privacy by default. So it gets really, really scary. Though, again, I like to see this experimentation. I like to see people see where they can go with this. But at the end of the day, guys, you have to be very, very, very careful with coins that are private by default like this, because again, of that undetectable inflation, it gets kind of scary. But let's go with Patrick next. Patrick, what are your thoughts on this Beam project? Do you think it's just gonna, just another altcoin, like Tone says, that we can eventually have most of the functionality on Bitcoin, or do you think this is some pretty good experimentation, in the privacy space?
Yeah, I mean, it's the problem that I really have with Beam is that it is like a corporate marketing project. You know, it's being launched as a company, and they are financially incentivized to go out there now and try to convince people not to use Bitcoin, but to use their cryptocurrency, which is, you know, which we have 2,000 of these damn things already. Like Tone said, there's a ton of people, there's a ton of already available, you know, solutions if people want to go use an altcoin with this feature, they can do it. Now, I'm not necessarily against technological innovation. I'm perfectly fine with that. Which is why I kind of like Grin's approach better. There's no pre-mine, there's no you know, like, yeah, block reward, whatever you know, treasury reward for to fill their coffers.
That's true. Grin has only taken donations and stuff, but they of course have infinite inflation. That's their plan, right? Yeah,
so they have an infinite inflation, which I think is a little bit more intellectually honest in a way, because you know, the Beam is taking the approach that that they're going to secure the blockchain with proof of work. But that's, I think, is a scam. We are, you know, in a way, I think that Bitcoin is really the only proof of work cryptocurrency that's actually produced enough fees to ever be secured through proof of work. So, you know, it's likely that Beam will have to change its consensus model at some point. And also just, yeah, I mean, the project's it's centrally controlled. It's not really organic per se. It looks like they really did rush to try to get it out to launch before Grin. I'm not necessarily against this technology. I think that it could be, yeah, implemented as a side chain for Bitcoin if it really becomes proven, right? So this protocol is not even proven yet. Just to actually say right now that this is better than anything else, or this is really the way to go, we don't actually know that. This protocol needs to go through many years of trial and error and being attacked, and being, you know, people they're gonna try to figure out ways to exploit bugs. So it's way too early right now to be saying that Mimblewimble is like a magical solution for privacy. All of a sudden, people should be very careful in, you know, using these new cryptocurrencies, because there can be flaws and bugs and we don't know yet. Now, as far as, yeah, using it as a side chain, that's where I think once the technology is proven, maybe 2 to 5 years from now, yeah, if it's proven, maybe it'll become a drive chain or a side chain on Bitcoin. And, you know, if you really want the features of Mimblewimble, you can use it. But again, we're already moving so quickly towards privacy on Bitcoin. I don't see a huge need for it. Now, one advantage of Mimblewimble is it does scale very well. But I think it does that in a way that also limits the functionality of what you can do with it. So for, like, from a scripting and smart programmable application point of view, I think it's a little more limited. And but I'm not a total expert on it. I've just really started to do like more research on it. But anyway, that's my quick takeaway, is that you know, from a monetary sovereignty standpoint, it doesn't make sense for us to keep launching more altcoins and dividing the liquidity. The more we divide the liquidity, the worse off everybody is. So this is to me, yeah, you know, I just hope that these two projects, I hope they don't, you know, pitch this as some type of like realistic alternative right now, because many years need to go into proving this idea before we even get close to talking about that. So anyways, that's my thought.
Yeah, it's important to remember, you know, we try to, everybody on this panel, you know, we try to continuously remind people that, you know, pretty much everything but Bitcoin is an experiment. I mean, Bitcoin was just an experiment, really, just as a couple of years ago. Personally, I saw Bitcoin sort of coming out of the experimental phase around 2013, 2014, maybe even as late as 2015. But really, like, just all of these other coins, they're going in all this experimentation. We like experimentation, but when it comes to things like consensus mechanisms, guys, look, proof of work is the only proven method of having censorship resistance at scale. So that's already done, and it does pain me to see some people try to go along these proof of stake methods and these combination of these proof of stake and proof of work, you know, because we've already figured out it's proof of work. And, you know, when it comes to censorship resistance, if you're going to experiment with other things, sure, you know, go ahead and do that. But it's going to be kind of crazy, because like you guys say, like you say, if there's anything that has any value, if there's any feature that really has value, we will just implement in Bitcoin in either the base layer, a side chain, a top layer. At some point, you know, some way, somehow, there will be a way to implement it if there is enough demand for it. So, Renee,
real quick, 1 sec. The one really interesting thing about this too is that I believe they're using Equihash, which is the same hashing function, or Beam is using Equihash, which is the same algorithm as Zcash, from my understanding. I don't know if it's a different implementation, but if they are using Equihash, the same one, then that's like a direct attack on Zcash. So they really are, you know, marketing this. It seems that way Beam is directly sort of like going head to head with Zcash and Monero, and that, you know, so these guys are going to fight it out, right? And in the end, I mean, we're just going to end up, someone's just going to launch another altcoin in a couple of years anyway. So no point in putting your bunch of money in this, to be honest.
It's interesting because anytime we see something with some interesting, right, like Monero maybe, or maybe Zk, something's going to come out, Mimblewimble, some other altcoin is going to come out, because the only thing that really has going for it is that it's experimentation, something new, something cool to try out. But they're not trying to create a store of value for the planet. So that's why we're all here. That's why Tone's here. That's why I'm here. We are here because of proof of work, right? We are here because we need a store of value. We need an option and exit from the current monetary system. So all of these other coins, as we continue to say, are mostly just fun to play with, experimentation. But it is that store of value that really is the reason why most of us, I think, are here. So very great points, Renee. I want to hear what you think about this. I know that you didn't get a chance to really check it out too much, but what are your thoughts maybe on Mimblewimble and sort of privacy on chain by default? Maybe some thoughts on that, and maybe some thoughts on Bitcoin pretty much just sort of inheriting all of this, or adding all of this privacy features in the future.
Yeah, so I actually had a chance to look at it. I downloaded the software and tried to mine some of the Beam coins, or what you would ever call them. I don't have the right graphics card, and I wonder where already all the hash power in the network comes from. If there's just some people bootstrapping this with, I don't know, burning some money or renting the hardware. It was pretty amazing for me that a protocol that is 3 days old has so much mining power that I couldn't mine a single block that's supposed to come every minute, right?
Isn't that interesting? Like, these centralized coins, man, it's ridiculous. Sorry.
Yeah, but it's really, it's really what's happening, right? You look at the Reddit page, and the Reddit page has like 300 subscribers and supposed to be equihash, right? So even if everyone was mining at this time, right, we couldn't have a hash power of like a million something, where graphic cards usually can provide like a couple of Sol, or whatever they measure this. So that was a little bit strange to me already. Another thing that I want to bring to the discussion here is the difficulty of good technologies to become the standard. I mean, this happened in the world over and over again, that you have competing technologies, and sometimes it was not the best technology that survived, right? I think a famous example is VHS, which was not the superior format for film, but it, for some reason, got like really big. So, I mean, if you look at Bitcoin, it was the first, right? So you could imagine that some smart people look at this, they find it's too difficult to reach out to the community to find consensus on how to change this, and they come up with innovation that is really better. I would not be surprised if there's some protocols out there that are just better than Bitcoin, right? On the other hand, we have a huge developer community in Bitcoin, right? Which just gives them so much more power to progress the protocol. And especially also what Patrick mentioned, right? When you come up with something new, there might be flaws and bugs in it. I mean, just last year, there was this inflation bug in Bitcoin that has not been detected before, right? And I would still expect that there are more bugs in Bitcoin. I was actually for a couple of time looking for bugs in Bitcoin, and I was surprised that most of them that I would expect to find, not expect, but that I could think of, were already like fixed and were not in there, right? So, but from my perspective, I'm looking at this as a developer, right? And I want to see what is the best technology to succeed, right? And currently, I think with Bitcoin and the Lightning Network, the tech stack is pretty high. That does not mean that there couldn't come a coin around next year that is just inheriting all these properties, solving another big issue that we might have, and becomes just more useful to people, right? We don't know this. And I think to some degree we have to be open for that. Another thing that was mentioned before is the fact that with privacy on blockchains, you can do weird stuff, or weird stuff can happen, right? So for example, you can have an inflation bug that is not to be spotted, right? So again, I think privacy is supposed to be solved in the second layer. And while I personally value some privacy, I think it's really hard to do what, for example, Jameson Lopp is doing, who is trying to be like completely off the record. It's difficult, right? And I think most people don't demand this amount of privacy. And those people who demand this, they have been, look at Edward Snowden. He was able to do this without Bitcoin, basically, right? I mean, I think he would have found a way to pay his server without Bitcoin.
Yeah, I think Bitcoin could have saved Snowden a lot of trouble. had that been around. But yeah, it's crazy because these assumptions, man, these mathematical assumptions get really, really complex in things like Mimblewimble. And if just one of those assumptions gets broken, it's over. And you may not even know that it's over, but there might be billions of dollars on the chain. And this is why, this is what we're warning people about. Right, Renee?
Yeah, I mean that is exactly one of the problems here, and I don't know. I mean, another topic that was mentioned before is this huge fragmentation, right? And it seems to be something that is a part of nature of humans, right? Where you say, hey, I just do my own project instead of contributing to one of the bigger projects. And I can understand this to some degree. I mean, it's difficult to get onboarded. I mean, when I asked my first questions about Lightning, I was this like person coming out of nowhere asking stupid questions, making a pull request, and people were like, yeah, who are you, what are you doing here? And you have to be I would say, I mean, it's a nice onboarding community, but obviously everyone knows each other, everyone already has so much experience with each other, right? And people are anonymous on the internet, so they don't know who you are, right? You might be there to put harm to the project, right? So it's difficult. But I would encourage anybody who wants to think about cryptography and about cryptocurrencies in general to put their brain power into Bitcoin, into the Lightning Network, and instead of going to some like really weird altcoins, right? And I mean, the best thing that could happen is that the technology of those is so great that Bitcoin decides to fork them back. Yeah. So
absolutely, great points, Renee. Great points. I mean, it's really tough because Bitcoin's network effects, right? Like Trace Mayer says, he's coined these 7 network effects. It's really going to be hard to get better than that, and to overcome those, to succumb those freaking network effects, because they are so powerful. We have all of these altcoins, and maybe some of them are better than Bitcoin. We're not saying Bitcoin is like the best technology. We're saying that it's the best for what it is, right? Which is this digital gold, the store of value, this monetary system outside of the state. There's nothing that has that from my opinion, that has been able to achieve that better. So from that point of view, of course, we're going to continue with Bitcoin. But these network effects, you guys, it's very, very important to remember that even if you have something better than Bitcoin, it's most likely probably not going to, beat Bitcoin. We're just going to integrate it into Bitcoin because these network effects are so powerful. You have this whole layer of hodlers of last resort, that of course are going nowhere. So let's go. I think we can pretty much end it here. Maybe we'll have one last opinion from Tone on this before we wrap it up. Tone, what are your last thoughts on this subject before we wrap it up?
No, that's it. I mean, like, people need to understand that there's altcoins and there's Bitcoin, right? Like, altcoins will compete with each other. Great, put Beam out there. It'll compete with Monero and Zcash and, I don't know, what else is there that claims to be private?
Zcash is the big one. Zcash and Monero are the big ones.
Dash thinks they're private, but they're obviously not. I mean, they should know that by now. But so like, it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant at this point, right? Like, it's completely irrelevant. It's an altcoin. That's it. Like it's done. It's not going to go anywhere. You can pump and dump it all you like, but those with anonymous Twitter handles will just change their affiliation from some other shitcoin to this shitcoin, just so they can pump it and try to get rich and get you to lose your money. I'm gonna ignore this like every other altcoin, and pretty much it.
Absolutely. So great points, Tone. Maybe we can just have you just have one last bit, because we're gonna go if everybody do their last bit now, because we kind of went a little bit over. So Tone, first tell us where we can find out more about you, and then just tell us maybe a quick bit about the conference.
Sure. Well, you can find me everywhere as Tone Vays, Twitter handle, Tone Vays YouTube channel, and organizing my first conference in Las Vegas. It'll be an awesome poker game, 0.1 Bitcoin buy-in, organized by the casino, professional tournament director, professional poker chips, dealers, the works. The tournament is nonprofit for the organizers like myself. There's no money to be made. There's no VIG. So other than expenses of putting the game on, everything else will be handed out as prize money for the game. So check that out. The conference itself will take place on Saturday. It'll be small. I'm expecting maybe 200 to 300 people total. in that room, in the conference room. It's going to be at the D Hotel Vortex. I think it's the first time I met you. It was at that conference in 2015 in Las Vegas. The conference where we heard Craig Wright speak for the first time in the world of crypto. Nick Szabo hasn't spoken. That was a pretty, like, if you look back at that conference, I mean, the whole world crypto network was there, like Thomas Hunt, and I think Blake Anderson was there, and Will Pangman. I mean, like, if you go back through the people at that conference, it's actually pretty good. It was a nice small conference. It's going to take place in that same exact room. We did it back then, so that would be fun. I just wanted to say one more thing. Like, while we were doing the show, I happened to be tagged in a tweet, and then I retweeted it. So it looks like the wording is changing. So what Vitalik started by creating the word Bitcoin maximalist as derogatory, clearly it's not derogatory enough. And as of today, I believe the wording is changing. We are now Bitcoin extremists. Charlie Lee has just tweeted it out. It's the first time I've seen it. So clearly the word Bitcoin maximalist started to, people were starting to embrace it. And shitcoiners need to demonize those that are speaking sense about this financial technology. And just be ready that it has to be more visceral. It has to create more hate into what we're trying to explain and trying to bring sense to the world. So get ready for that, Bitcoin, because those that believe in Bitcoin first, but with some delusion, think that it's all going to coexist and everybody will be happy, running 18 different proof of work chains and 18,000 different proof of stake chains. So these people like to also embrace the Bitcoin maximalism. So now everyone that they don't like are going to be Bitcoin extremists. So just watch out for that in the Twitter sphere.
Oh my God, that's the new term, huh? Extremist. See, personally, I never really liked the term Bitcoin maximalist because, again, we're here because Bitcoin. There's nothing better than Bitcoin for what it's trying to do. That's why we're in Bitcoin. I mean, if something comes better, gets better network effects, and does what Bitcoin's doing better, then fine. But that's why I hate that term because it makes it sound like only Bitcoin because of Bitcoin, because it's Bitcoin. It's like, no, it's only Bitcoin right now because there's nothing better. And that's why I never really liked that term. And now they're throwing extremist at us. Like, oh my God, that's going to be even more crazy. So I never personally embraced the term Bitcoin maximalist, and I'm definitely not going to embrace the term extremist, for God's sake. But yeah, Tone, thanks for that heads up. It's just going to be another layer of shade, another layer of hatred that they're going to try to stir up against Bitcoin. And again, this is just the beginning, guys. This is just local stuff. Wait till the governments start coming up with terms. But anyway, we got Renee here that's going to share something now. I'm really excited to see what he's going to say, and then we'll see where we can find out more about you, Renee. So go ahead and tell us about the project that you're working on real quick.
Yes, so the thing is, when I joined the Lightning Network space as a developer, I realized pretty quickly that there is a lot of education missing about the Lightning Network. I mean, there's education missing about Bitcoin, about OPSEC, about all these topics, but in particular about the Lightning Network. And that is one of the reasons why I actually started my YouTube channel about the Lightning Network, where I try to put out videos for developers, but also for people who are just interested in technology, or even for beginners who want to understand what is the Lightning Network all about. And recently, I've been talking more and more with people from the financial industry, from the financial sector. And it's really interesting. I always hear the same thing. They have their people who are like blockchain or cryptography people, and they always realize blockchains don't really scale. But with all these altcoins, with all this FUD that is out there, they kind of don't see the Lightning Network. So I think one thing for the Bitcoin community that is really, really important is to educate more people about Bitcoin. And that is why I decided in 2019 I wanted to write a book about the Lightning Network, where I tried to educate, in the first place, developers. So just to onboard them, not to become protocol developers, but just to become developers building applications on top of the Lightning Network. It will also have some section, obviously, about Bitcoin. But it's also supposed to be for the average person to just get a feeling of what the Lightning Network is like and what the future of payment systems will be like. The thing is that I heard about Bitcoin in 2010, but the problem is the guy was from a bank who introduced it to me, and he was like, Rene, you're a technical guy. What do you think about Bitcoin? I was like, I haven't heard about it. What is it? And he's like, yeah, it's another form of PayPal. And I was like, I don't need another PayPal. That's why I couldn't mine many Bitcoins in 2010, and I'm not like a Bitcoin whale or something. So I have to see how I finance this project. So I thought a symbolic value of 21.21 Bitcoin would be really nice, because I think writing a book takes at least a year, and it's not even a yearly wage what I would get as a data scientist or Lightning developer. So I created this fundraiser campaign on Tallycoin, which actually collects Bitcoin. And you are able to pay with Lightning. So they integrated Lightning when I talked to them about this, and they gave me a special URL that is tallycoin/s/ln book. So like Lightning book.
I'll add that to the show notes, but go ahead.
Perfect. So yes, I think today is like the first time where I kind of like publicly talk about this idea of creating this book. There's some nice perks, hopefully, if you think you want to donate to this book project and you want some other perks, we can negotiate this. And as people on the chat already discussed this before, whether I'm a Bitcoin maximalist or, as I now learned from Tone, an extremist, there's also a Patreon page that I set up. I know it's the ugly thing, but you know, in everyday life, I need fiat money anyway. And some people might just want to hold on their Bitcoins and still want to support the project. So yeah, I have these two ways. I don't accept altcoins or Bcash.
There you go. There you go. No, so this is awesome, Rene. So this real quick, Rene is starting to trying to get this book launched, guys. This is pretty cool. This is a book about Lightning. It's kind of going to be like, in my opinion, sort of like a Mastering Bitcoin for Lightning, you know, sort of a little bit, or you know, like a course even maybe for Lightning to be able to get started on it. So it's going to have a lot of good information, and I'm sure you're going to keep it up to date. It's going to be on GitHub, guys. So, you know, it's going to be very up to date. He's got the Tallycoin page. So it's going to be fundraising mostly in Bitcoin. It does have a Patreon option, but we prefer Bitcoin, of course, guys. And that's at tallyco.in. So, you know, Tallycoin, tallyco.in/LN book, as in Lightning Network book. We're going to have a link to that in the show notes as well. So guys, got to check that out. Rene's going to have, I think, a lot more information about it next week. He's going to have some videos. He's going to have some information, some text, I think. So definitely check that out. But until then, guys, make sure to check out the Tallycoin page, because we need more documentation, guys, on Lightning. It's really early, so we need more of this. So I think this is a great idea, Rene.
Let me just add to this. I just also posted the GitHub repository in the chat, and I'm trying to do this as an open process, right? So the book will be under an open license. I mean, I will hopefully try to bring it to a publisher at some point in time, because I mean, books usually need to be physical at some point in time too. But the idea is really to have an open process where people can review the stuff, and I want to continue to produce the YouTube videos. So my idea is, when you create educational content, especially a book, you have to write it several times, right? I mean, I could easily now write a book very quickly by just looking at the bolts, writing a small chapter around them, and attach all of this together to a book. And probably this would sell because it's the first Lightning book, right? But I want to do something that is really, really educating people, onboarding people. So the idea is, I write a chapter or a section, and then I make a YouTube video about this, and I see the feedback from the community, and then I can rewrite the chapter, because I can see what is working, what is not working, right? And this is obviously a full-time thing. So yeah, I mean, I'll be excited to see if the Bitcoin community wants such a book. And yeah, I will definitely put on a video during the week, giving a little bit more details about my plan. And
yeah, I'm really excited about this, guys. I mean, again, this is the first Lightning Network book, so that's going to be really, really cool. And again, it's funded by Bitcoin, so that is really, really exciting. So Rene, I'm definitely excited about this book, especially how you're going to do it. Again, guys, you know, he's going to write the chapter, do a YouTube video, get feedback from the community, and then see if it should go in the book, right? And then tweak it and put it in the book. So this is a two-way communication, guys. He's writing this with the community, so we really appreciate your feedback. We really appreciate if you guys could donate as well. I think that he's going for 21 coin. So we'll see if we can get that. So again, Rene, thank you so much for your contributions for that. We really, really appreciate it. Where can we find out more about you, Rene?
You can follow me on Twitter, which is @RenePickard. And I mean, I have my Lightning node running. And of course, you can check out my YouTube channel. I think that is probably currently the most interesting thing, because there's where all the educational content is there.
Absolutely, guys. So check that out. The links are definitely in the show notes below. Patrick, finally, last but not least, my friend, where can we find out more about you? And what are your thoughts? Well, I guess, yeah, we're done with the topic. So just tell us, I guess, where we can find out more about you.
I just want to say that I'm really grateful to guys like Renee for software engineers who take the time and help connect the regular folks out there with software that's being built and helping people learn about it. It's really important. Really, we can't onboard more people, and we can't build this without documentation and without information for people. So, I'm looking forward to hopefully in the future, having a show on the CryptoCast network where I can go into topics in depth as well on, some the projects that are being built on the Lightning Network as well as Bitcoin. I just think there's going to be so many projects in 2019 that it's going to be really hard to keep track of everything. And I'm hoping to discuss the best of the best. And I'm hoping to contribute to your book as well. I look forward to checking out that GitHub repository, and I may or may not donate some on the Lightning Network. You will not be able to track that payment because it will not be on the blockchain. Yeah, you can find more about me. I'm really just a Bitcoiner. I just like to fight FUD, and I like to educate people on Twitter right now. Yeah, you can find me Brickstring Tech. I'm just using that funny word. That was coined by some TV show. But that's
yeah, man. Looking forward to having you on the channel. Looking forward to that show. Hopefully, we can get that going within the next couple of weeks or a couple of months. And I'm really, really excited about that. We're going to have a couple new shows coming, guys, in 2019 to the CryptoCast, and that is going to be one of them. So again, guys, if you like this show, we really appreciate if you could share it out, hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe if you're new. We really appreciate everybody joining here. Thanks so much, everybody in the chat. Thank you guys so much for all of our special guests. Thank you, Tone. Thank you, Renee. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you guys so much for being here. Really, really appreciate your guys' thoughts and opinions. And of course, guys, we're going to be here all year. We got lots more shows to go. We're going to be here every Sunday at 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern time. So until next time, guys, keep talking Bitcoin, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.